Huff, and I've been working on Spring Grove Village. My main focus for this project is complete streets and implementing that ideal to a whole network of streets in the neighborhood. Several of the design principles that I've been following closely for this whole project for complete streets are to design streets that are safe for everyone, design streets that are safe for bikers, for pedestrians, for drivers, for anyone that's utilizing the street on a daily basis, to make sure that they are safe, that they can enjoy their movement around the neighborhood and throughout Cincinnati, as well as to enjoy just how the neighborhood looks and how the streets are set up with landscaping, incorporating other medians and new bus stops and things like that just make it more of a cohesive unit in the neighborhood, that make it more excitable for people to use because you use streets in everyday life. So my first two maps here are existing conditions within the neighborhood. I analyzed the sidewalks and their conditions. There are a lot of sidewalks in the neighborhood, but the main issue with them is that not all of them connect to each other. And because there's so many pedestrians moving around in Spring Grove Village, it's very important that the network be complete and that people can walk from other neighborhoods in or across down to the Kroger. That's the main point for the neighborhood. But without having all of the sidewalks to connect to each other, you have a main issue of how do you get those people to where they want to go. I also looked at where pedestrians were walking around in the neighborhood as a whole. Jessica will analyze a little bit more about pedestrians specifically, but a lot of them come from up here. There is a public housing development, and every time that I visited down there, I was always seeing people walking down SA Avenue down to the Kroger, or walking through some of the industrialized areas to kind of cut around the main busy intersection to get down to the Kroger. So most of these roads already have sidewalks on them. They just need a little bit more sprucing up or a little bit more work done. Right now the neighborhood is working on a whole stretch on Spring Grove Avenue that they have torn up, and they've put in new sidewalks. They are adding a median right now that's almost done, and I'm assuming that that's also going to involve a lot of landscaping once they finish putting in the basic elements to it. I also analyzed the bus stops on the main roads and some of the driving traffic flow as opposed to pedestrian. And there's 4 main routes for buses that run through the neighborhood. A lot of them come down Winton, or they go across Spring Grove. And then there's a few that go down SA and cut across down Mitchell. It's a central neighborhood to I-75, and it's close to South Cummingsville and North Side, so there's a lot of buses that are always driving through, that are always picking up new passengers and dropping them off, so that's a very important aspect to the neighborhood. So I have a couple ideas for how to improve Spring Grove Village. The first thing I looked at was the bus stops. But they're located, as I just said, all along the main street, so I didn't look at any of the bus stops that were within the neighborhood that were in smaller use. So we came up with 3 preliminary designs. It's nothing solid, just kind of an idea that I came up with. The first design would be just a covered bus stop that stops the wind, stops the rain, allows people to wait for the bus a little bit more comfortable when the conditions outside aren't as nice. These type of bus stops would also have trees and some landscaping around it to give the nicer appeal. But the main focus they would go would be one in front of the Kroger down here, because that's probably the busiest bus stop in the entire neighborhood and sees the most people. It already has a covered stop right now, but sprucing it up wouldn't hurt to make it look a little bit better. The one on Spring Grove Avenue also is this bus stop right here. Is probably the nicest one in the neighborhood. Just sprucing that up also would improve the use for it. And in front of it right now, there's a lot of construction going on and the sidewalks being added to. The second style would specifically be for Winton Road. We talked a lot about how we could incorporate better bus stops along Winton Road, because the whole cemetery right here has an old historic wall that goes all the way down it, and it's about maybe 4 feet from the side of the curb to that wall, and you can't touch the wall because it's so old. And we talked about seeing if we could implement a different style of bus that would allow people to sit there a little safer from the road, because you're sitting directly on the road. But you can't change that, so the question is, what do you do with those people to make sure that they don't get hit by a car that's speeding right by them down Winton? So a bus stop like this has really small walls just to hold it up on the side, but the roof overhangs a little bit more. So it'd be high enough that it wouldn't affect the vehicles that are going by. It wouldn't quite go out to the road, but it would provide that protection for the people from the rain or from the wind. And it would be better than just having a simple sign like it has right now with dirt on it. So you could stand on something that was a little bit more solid. So that would specifically be along Wayton Road, just to provide a better stop for the pedestrians walking there. The third style is just a basic bus stop. Add a couple benches, maybe a tree for shade, a little bit of landscaping, but I mean, you're not planning on staying at a bus stop forever. You're hoping your bus will show up, so by just incorporating a few along here where they could sit down and wait instead of just standing there waiting for the bus to come would improve the situation. The second idea I focused on was gateway enhancement. Now the neighborhood's been working on adding gateways, and